Hello, and welcome back to another video. A couple of days ago I put out a video basically asking if anybody had any questions for me. I almost didn't put that video out because I genuinely didn't think there would be that many. You have proved me wrong. At this point I think I've gotten about 48 comments. A lot of them are multiple questions as well, so I'm not going to spend too long on this intro. I'm going to get into it, but there's no way I can answer everything in one video, so I'm going to split this up into 2 or 3 depending on how long it takes. I think in the interest of fairness, the only way to really go about doing this is to answer each question based on when it came in. So if you were the first person to ask a question, you're going to be the first person to get an answer. So if your question isn't answered in this video, don't stress out about it. I do intend to answer every single one of them, so it might be in the next one. So here we go. So the first question is from a guy called TOBG Show. Have you heard of a band similar to OC's, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard? If so, what's your opinion on them? If not, I'd recommend checking them out. Yes, I am very aware of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, or Wizard Lizard. Definitely a big fan of theirs. I actually reviewed their Gumboot Soup album at the beginning of last year. I'll put a link of that in the description. Pretty phenomenal band really. In 2017 they put out 5 albums, and they were of varying sort of genres and sounds and scopes. So yeah, go and check out my review of Gumboot Soup. A couple of weeks ago they put out an album called Fishing for Fishies, which I fully intended to review, but I just didn't get the chance. This year has been a real son of a bitch in terms of things getting in the way of the channel. I haven't managed to get the momentum going this year. Been a couple of pretty shit things that have happened that have caused that, but anyway, that's not the... But as we are here now and we are talking about it, the latest album, Fishing for Fishies, I would have probably given it a 6 out of 10. It was not as good as some of their other stuff, a bit boring in some places, a bit derivative, but there was some great stuff on there as well. I kind of more enjoyed the back half of the album. However, Gumboot Soup I thought was a fantastic album, and there's certainly a wealth of stuff to discover, so I highly recommend that band. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Second question comes from I Am Not a Number. I Am Not a Number. Would love to hear your thoughts on either of the Idols albums someday. Well, I've actually already done a review for Joy is an Act of Resistance, is that what it was? I reviewed that back in the summer of last year. I won't ruin it for you, go and check that out. I haven't heard the first album. But what did I think of Joy is an Act of Resistance? I'll click the link and find out. I do apologise, I'm currently sucking on a Gaviscon tablet. Next question is from Death Metal FTW9. What albums do you feel most proud of to have in your collection? At this point I'd probably have to say some of my Devin Townsend collection. There's a great 9-disc set, I think it was. Was it 9? I think it was 9-disc set of By a Thread, which was the entire quadrilogy set, Key, Addicted, Deconstruction and Ghost, performed live. So you got each performance on DVD and CD, plus all the bonus tracks. I've got the deluxe version of the Retinal Circus, which I'm very happy with, and also recently I got the Live in Plovdiv set. I get CDs mainly, and a lot of CDs nowadays are kind of underwhelming. I can't really afford vinyl, but yeah, I'd have to say my Devin Townsend stuff. Just passed a right miserable bastard then. What was it, a mirror? Next question comes from Steve Tobin, not sure. I'm a massive fan of Swedish Metal from Ghost to Greenleaf. What's your thoughts? I'm a late comer to the party in terms of Ghost. I only really sat down and listened to them last year when I reviewed their Prequel album, which ended up being my album of 2018. I absolutely loved that album, and I went back and checked out the back catalogue, and I was mightily impressed. Very, very impressive band. I can completely see how they've gotten as big as they have. In terms of other Swedish metal, I suppose there's bands like Opeth. I really got into Opeth back in the day, not listened to them so much lately. I did listen to Sorceress, was it, the last album? I enjoyed a lot of that. I'm very much looking forward to doing what they do next. Doing what they do? Hearing what they do. Meshuggah, of course, Legends. At the Gates, I very much enjoyed their album, was it To Drink from the Night Itself? I've done a review of some of these as well, you should check them out, I went through a bit of an In Flames period back in the early 2000s. Kind of lost touch with them. I still haven't checked out their last album actually. I thought that were bees. The Haunted, I think, a pretty cool band. Amon Amarth, they did their last album Berserker, which I did actually very much enjoy that. Review, link in description. Arch Enemy fucking suck. They suck. I listen to a lot of stuff like Entombed, back in the day as well. Very much enjoyed that, but didn't really keep up with it. I've liked what I've heard of a lot of it, but not necessarily kept up with it. What a terrible answer. Next up, we've got Jimmy Johnstone with a cheeky three-parter. Cheating bastard. This is quite a tough one, some of these. What's your favourite band of all time? What's your favourite album of all time? And what's the best gig you've been to in your life? Whew, not too deep questions. Okay, so what's your favourite band of all time? Now this is an interesting one because I've got a lot of bands that I absolutely adore. I'm sure like the rest of you, there's a lot of bands that you adore, and it's the same for me. I have to say, if I was to go on instinct, if I was to go on gut, and it's quite a boring answer I'm afraid, but it would have to be Metallica. I'd say it's more down to the importance that they played in my life. There are plenty of bands that I listen to far more, but they are the band that changed everything for me. They're the band that got me into metal in the first place. They've got an extensive back catalogue that goes from all, you know, you've got all the fast stuff, you've got the ballads, you've got the slower, ploddier, groovier stuff. James Hetfield is still an inspiring guy. I love listening to his interviews. I think he's a really sound human being. So yeah, I guess more in terms of importance it would have to be Metallica. I'm sure that's going to piss a lot of people off, but it happens to be the truth. Favourite album? Wow, I'm not very good at these sorts of things. I don't know if there's such a thing as a favourite album. There's so many fantastic albums. I mean, again, if we're going in terms of importance, I can answer that. Queen Greatest Hits was the first album that I ever owned. I mean, Queen would be a strong contender for favourite band as well, because they were also an incredibly important band in my life. That Greatest Hits album, I got that when I was like 8 years old, and the scope, the sheer breadth of styles that was on that album, I sincerely think that helped shape my love of variation in music. I've always been inspired by people like Devin Townsend, Ginger Wildheart, incorporate all sorts of different styles into their music or whatever, and I think a lot of that came from Queen. And I know a Greatest Hits album sounds an odd one. Of course, you got Metallica's Black Album. That's the album that changed everything for me, got me into the heavier stuff, that guitar tone, the production, the songs, of course, the heaviness that kind of spoke to me, got me into the heavier stuff. Then you got Sepultura's Chaos AD, Pantera's Vulgar Display of Power, Biohazard with Urban Discipline, Fear Factory, Dim Manufacture, Typo Negative, Bloody Kisses. Later on, I kind of lost interest in guitar music for a while, and Mastodon's Leviathan album, when that came out in 2004, I kept hearing about this new band that were just blowing everybody away, and I checked out the album, and it was just that progressive metal style just completely got me back into metal music and guitar music again. But yeah, in terms of a favourite album, I'm afraid I couldn't answer that. So then what else did we have? Best gig that I've ever been to? Wow. Whew. The one that always stands out was, I believe it was Ozfest 98. I want to say 98, I think it was. There were a lot of great bands who played there that day. I think Fear Factory opened, but the Mighty Slayer played. And me and my friend Ricky Gooman, we were in the pit for that, and we got thrown around all over the place, and we absolutely loved it. I remember speaking to him for weeks afterwards. I don't think either of us had any kind of negative or nasty thoughts for a good 2 or 3 weeks afterwards. We got so much energy and anger and aggression out of us during that pit that yeah, that was great. Pantera kind of sucked actually, not because the band did, because it was so goddamn heaving that we were just wedged in, and you couldn't move. Everyone was there to see Pantera. This was what, Great Southern Trendkill, I guess it would have been. Metallica back in 2006 Download Festival, they played Master of Puppets in its entirety for the 20th anniversary. That was very special. Machine Head back in 98, I think it might have been, at the Astoria in London. That was on the More Things Change tour. I remember Logan Mader kicking a security guard in the head who was being particularly out of line. I think they were being supported by Napalm Death, Cold Chamber and Skin Lab. I think that was the band's name, I can't remember. They were all pretty cool. I remember me and my friend Andrew Hall, we walked into the backstage area by accident afterwards, and stood at the bar was Skin Lab, this huge motherfucker, and Shane Embry on the other side of the bar, just kind of slumped over with a beer, keeping himself to himself, and he kind of looked over at me and my friend and just kind of nodded, and we kind of pussied out and immediately turned around and got out of there. We must have only been like 18 or something at the time. Looking back on it, I think he was just like sort of cool, you know, want to come over and chat, it's all good, have a beer, but yeah, we didn't. There's another couple of gigs that really stood out to me as well, and I saw them all in the space of a week. Faith No More, they just reunited and they played back at the Brixton Academy. Of course, the course, one of their biggest albums, live at Brixton Academy, was recorded there. That was a great gig. So many good songs, such a great band. We also saw, this was me and a friend called Simon Denock. We also saw Mastodon performing Crack the Sky in its entirety. And we also saw Suicidal Tendencies, all in the space of a week. And the last one, my friend Luke Bugden attended as well as Simon Denock. So what was your favourite gig of all time? I don't know. Okay, we got another two-parter here. We've got Vinyl FTW. He asks, you seem to prefer CDs. What do you think about vinyl resurgence? And also he asks, do you like Porcupine Tree or Steven Wilson? So, tackle the first one. Yes, I get CDs primarily because I don't have a record player. I've been buying less and less because, quite frankly, I can't afford it. I spent a ridiculous amount of money on albums last year. I would love to be a vinyl collector. If I could have everything on vinyl, I would. But I simply cannot afford it. I've often said to a few friends of mine at work who collect vinyl that it's just a black hole. It's a rabbit hole that I don't want to go down, because I just know how much it'll end up costing me. I just won't have any money. You don't have any money now. Yes, what was the other one? Do I like Porcupine Tree or Steven Wilson? Yes I do, very much so. Porcupine Tree I'm less familiar with, I have to say, but I've got I think I've got all of Steven Wilson's solo albums, I believe. Huge fan, like a lot of his stuff. Obvious genius. I know he does, of course, all the remasters for classic prog stuff as well, which I haven't checked out. I've got to admit, I'm a bit put off by him. He does seem somewhat arrogant and a little bit pompous and condescending, I find, in quite a few of the interviews I've seen with him. Maybe he's not like that, maybe I've just seen the wrong interviews. I have seen some good ones with him, but yeah, he does seem a little up himself, which I guess is fair. Ego and believing in yourself is a huge part of being an artist, so went off on a tangent there, but yes, I am a huge fan of Steven Wilson's music. Okay, do a few more and then I think I'm going to have to call it quits on this video. It's getting on quite a while. Metalhead 5, another two-parter. What is your favourite album of 2019 right now? And also, will you do a review of Ultima's album? No problem if don't want to. Well, Ultima's album, I've not actually had a chance to hear it. There's a lot of albums I'm trying to catch up on this year. As I said earlier, it's been a bit of a tough one for getting any kind of momentum going. Sorry to disappoint, but probably not. Favourite album of 2019 right now? That's a tough one. I really enjoyed the new Rammstein. Devin Townsend, I've got to admit, I gave that a 9 out of 10, I think. I've got to admit, it's not held my attention as much as I thought it would. It's still a very strong album. Periphery, Hail Stan. I really enjoyed that album. I thought that was great. I really did. The new Wild Hearts album is fantastic. One album that's actually gotten better with each listen is Hexed by Children of Bodom. I think maybe I gave that an 8 out of 10. Maybe a 7, I don't know. I think I'd like to say 8. That's actually gotten better with every listen. The Heretics by Rotting Christ, I really enjoyed. That really surprised me, that album. It's a very strong contender for album of the year, that one. Don't think it will be, but very good. As it stands right now, I think it would have to go to Periphery with Hail Stan. Would you stop nodding at the camera? Next question. Arjen Ritterfeld. I do apologise if I butchered your name, I suck. Hey man, thanks for all the great videos. You're alright. On to the questions. What is your background in music? What instruments do you play? And what is your preferred medium for listening to records? Background in music, I mean, like everybody else, I've been listening since I was very, very young. It's always been a huge part of my life. I think when you're a metalhead, it's kind of probably more a part of your life than a lot of other people. It's kind of becomes a religion. So not only did I listen to tons of music, but I got obsessed with reading biographies and interviews and getting the backstories and all that sort of stuff. So I like to consider myself somewhat informed, especially with the stuff that I grew up with. Maybe not so much now. God, I'm out of touch. In terms of what instruments do I play, I've been playing guitar since I was 14. Self-taught, because I'm a stubborn twat. I don't like being told what to do. I'm nowhere near as good as I should be, considering how long I've been playing, but I'm not a bad guitarist either. I've written and recorded a lot of songs, none of which are worth your time. They suck. But yeah, I'm capable of writing and recording music, and maybe I should start doing that more and use them in my own videos actually, because I can, even if it's just for comedic value. So, and what was the last one? What is my preferred medium of listening? I would love to be able to listen to music on a proper record player with decent speakers and a decent place to listen therein. However, I don't have the space, I don't have the equipment, so unfortunately, even though I buy CDs, a lot of the times I have to rip them to my phone and listen to them on there, which is sacrilege for somebody who does music reviews. I'm well aware of that. It's probably one of the reasons I don't necessarily delve into the production side of things too much when I'm talking about things, because there's only so much you can comment about with a compressed file, whether it be lossless or not. And I think on that note, I'm going to have to call it quits for this part. This is, as I said, I'm really blown away by how many people have been asking questions. Way more than I was anticipating. So I will pick up next time with Mark Lee. So if you're watching, sir, Mark Lee, and my good buddy Valdis Bamika, I think that's your name, buddy. I hope I got it wrong. I hope I got it right even. God damn, I suck. Long-time supporter of the channel, that dude. Your 2 questions will be the first, and then there'll be some others. I painted myself into a corner.